What's up guys, MainManSWE here, hoping you're all doing awesome as always. This is gonna be another, debate video. I've gotten a lot of requests to do and give an answer to all times video here. This is a Lei-oriented YouTuber, a Tekken YouTuber. I'm gonna link his video below so you can check him out. He's got great videos if you want to get into Lei, and he's made a good video here. I've watched it regarding how I said that Lei was an easy character in my opinion, and he says Lei is one of the most difficult characters in the game. I just feel like this is again where we have different philosophies regarding Tekken. I find it better to deconstruct a given character into beginner, intermediate, high level and professional level, add all of those together to get an overall verdict on a character. And this is going to be someone who, just like with Nina, is going to say that the character is hard at the absolute top level and therefore the character is super hard. And I just cannot agree, so we're going to discuss some of this. Again, I'm going to have to state my opinion again, but this is probably the last time I'm going to do that. But he has a good video, so let's watch it.
What's up everybody? I got a shitload of requests lately because of MainMan's difficulty tier list. So viewers have been asking me if Lei is easy to use and if Lei is a strong character in Tekken 7. And my opinion is that Lei is somewhere at mid tier and he's definitely one of the hardest characters to use in the game. Yeah, there's a big misunderstanding of the character's playstyle, I guess. So the main man, for example, says that it is hard to play against Lei because of his long move list. But think about it for a second. If you know how to counter Razor Rush, which is Lei's best move, so if you know how to counter this move correctly, the matchup becomes so much easier. But if you don't know how to react to Razor Rush, and instead of that, you know how to counter most of his gimmicks, I guarantee you will lose.
If you don't know how to counter most of his gimmicks, you will lose. Well, that's a given. The problem is just that you're talking about a character that has 200 moves in his arsenal. Many of them strings. He has like 12 stances, correct me if I'm wrong. That puts a great responsibility on your opponent. And I'm gonna try and deconstruct this. And you lifted here what I said, like his big move list, but it's like you don't really touch upon it. All you say is, if you know how to counter Razor Rush, well, that's one of the things out of 200, and that's his best move, I agree, and it goes into a lot of his mix-ups. But I would have liked you to talk a little bit more on what I said, like 200 moves puts a great responsibility on the opponent. And it's here also you have to say with Lei that there are a couple of things that add together here in my opinion. You have arguably the greatest mix-up character in the game, and you agree. He's going to mention this later in the video. You have a bag of tricks that is limitless. It's literally 200 moves, 12 stances, puts a great responsibility onto your opponent to lab this character, and the labbing process is highly complicated. Multiply now the difficulty of this, considering Lei is so underused. Even though a lot of people were shouting for Lei to be added into Tekken 7 with DLC because a lot of people felt an iconic character is missing. He actually almost didn't make it into Tekken 7 due to how abysmal his character usage stats were in Tag 2 and in previous games. So he actually almost didn't make it. Then a lot of people screamed for Lei, he's added into the game, and again, everyone who screamed for Lei, no one's playing him. So you have arguably the greatest mix-up character in the game, large responsibility on the opponent, but no one has on their priority list to learn to deal with Lei because it's just so complicated to lab him, and then what do you get out of it? You never really run into him. I run into a Lei every 6 months, and by then everything I've learned about the matchup in my previous encounter has gone out the window. And boy oh boy is it a lot to learn. And when you have priority characters like Kazumi, Devil Jin, Jin, Paul, Geese, I mean, or in my case, you know, Yoshi I see quite a lot, but Lei, never see Lei. So to a lot of people, this character is somewhat of a mystery. And let me just explain where I'm coming from yet again, even though I've done this many times. This is the difficulty of a character. It goes up here, the difficulty. And I've explained this many times, but I feel like I gotta do it again. Here we have beginner, here we have intermediate, here we have high level, and right next to my sweet ass here we have pro, even though that's kind of hard to read. So Lei, due to the nature of his character, how many mix-up he has, and his pressure, you know, going from stance to stance, and great strings, and unseeable hell sweep that tracks both sides, he can lie down on the ground. It's very complicated. And it's hard to play defense in Tekken. Great defense is something you acquire late. So to me, Lei is a character that looks like this. Wait, sorry, but it's completely opposite. The difficulty is super low in beginner ranks, intermediate, even in high level, due to no one really knows this matchup. And he's going to touch upon this later in his video. And then at pro level, it gets very difficult due to Lei having very weak frames when you deconstruct him completely and people know how to counter him. He's very correct here all the time, so it's very difficult. And the problem is that people like all times, they only look at this. But I'm going to explain that the arc here is very interesting and it's worth taking a look at, but I'm the only one who stresses this. And with Kazuya, for example, as I've said before, and you know, it's very hard, beginner, intermediate. It's about as hard as it can get. And then at high level, it becomes easier. And then at pro level, when both people are highly skilled, Kazuya is easier than Lei. And this is, of course, what all time sees, and this is all people want to talk about. But in my opinion, this arc here is very interesting. And that is looking at the bigger picture. Don't we want to be as detailed as possible when we deconstruct this game? Because in my opinion, it becomes so confusing for someone playing, for example, Kazuya in green ranks, and all he hears is how difficult Lei is. He goes to All Time's channel, and All Time's like, oh, hardest character. Or Nina. Oh, Nina, oh, she's impossible to play. Oh, you're playing Lars? Lars, no, wait, Lars is super difficult. But Lars is designed to be an easy character, and Lars is very easy in beginner intermediate. But then he becomes very hard. You know, same with Noctis, we have quite drastic curves. And again, with the example of Nina, she's kind of designed to be quite a literal bitch to play against in beginner and intermediate. There's very little effort involved, and then she becomes very difficult. Isn't that arc very interesting and part of the game? And not to even mention the fact that this here is a reality to 0.01% of a player base, and this is a reality to 99.9, oh sorry, that's an 8, 99.9% of a player base. So that is where I'm coming from. I know a lot of people have a different philosophy on this, but don't we want to be as detailed as possible when discussing Tekken and keeping every single player in mind? And but that's just me. It's just me, I guess. So that's why I can't say Lei is one of the hardest characters in the game, because when you add all of this up, you will literally stomp everyone until you make it to high and top level, because the character puts such a tremendous responsibility on the person defending, as he is so unorthodox and the big mix-up bag, and then he's so severely underplayed that it's just a diminishing amount of players who actually know how to counter him very well.
So it's not the long move list that makes it hard to play against Lei. It is because people don't know Lei's key moves, and his key moves are leading to mix-up situations that you can avoid.
Yes.
Proper pro level. I think you need more for that. He's using one move on me. I need to learn how to step Razor Rush. I could, yeah. You have to hate the Razor Rush. Right? How can you not hate this move, man? Out of range!
No.
Alright. So there we had a lot of footage of him using only Razor Rush, and at the bottom of the screen he wrote so many moves to deal with when playing against Lei. Well, I guess he's trying to counter my argument here and saying that I only, look at me, I can only use Razor Rush and take out this opposing player here. And to me, I don't really know what this is supposed to mean. I guess he's saying a good layer only uses Razor Rush. To me, but this is just to me. You can explain this to me in a follow-up video if you want to, or in a comment on this video. But to me, it just feels like you're reinforcing my position here, where
he's using one move on me.
You're playing against legendary Mihawk, who, at least in my eyes, is one of the absolute greatest players in Europe. And to me, he's a very skilled defensive player. He's labbed most of the characters. He is a great punisher. His movement is excellent. And you're able to take him down here by simply doing Razor Rush, Razor Rush, Razor Rush, Razor Rush. I'm not taking anything away from you. You're very good at placing that Razor Rush, delaying the hits, doing mix-ups into different stances. But the fact is, you're getting away with only doing Razor Rush into mix-ups.
You have to hate these
so, doesn't it speak towards my point that Lei
right?
is a highly unorthodox character that very few players have experience against? And even such a skilled defensive player like Mihawk doesn't really know how to counter your string.
What makes Lei so damn good?
I feel like that your example here worked a little bit more towards my position rather than yours. But feel free to explain this if I missed something.
Lei has good panic buttons, I would say. He has his crane hop kick, and he can also cheese you out of your life with a series of good reads and momentum. So if you give a Lei player too much space, good luck, sir. Lei has great movement because of his stances and his manual backturn transition. He can also make use out of grounded stances. Lei is not execution heavy. You can play him at his best with low effort execution wise. But with good execution, you have access to great tools like stance movement, or should I say improved stance movement, and magic 4 combos. Lei's tracking is good. Moves like forward 3 can blow up sidesteps. And he has a huge amount of launchers. But
it's good to note here that his Hell Sweep, down back 4-4, it's just as fast as a Hell Sweep. It's got a little bit more range. There's some crushing when he does it, and it tracks both sides. Like his down back 4-4 is pretty fucking good.
Your opponent can reduce that amount of launchers by knowing when to interrupt Lei's stances. Because all of his low launchers come out of his stance. And if you interrupt that stance, Lei can't do a low launcher. Then there is his offense. Lei's offense is completely confusing and effective.
Lei's offense is completely confusing and effective. And that is correct, of course. And that goes into what I said, that great responsibility on the opponent to be very on point with the defense and have great knowledge on Lei, the character that's at the very bottom of everyone's priority list when it comes to learning the matchups. And he's also one of the hardest matchups to learn. It's like, you're in a very good position when you play Lei. Like, I just think most people just go like, what? Oh, this character's in the game? Oh.
But hard to apply.
But of course, again, I want to stress that what All Times looks at is when I go to a tournament and play with professional players, Lei is difficult. And absolutely he is. But in my opinion, you should look at the bigger picture.
Even harder if the opponent knows the matchup.
But even looking at the professional level, is he really one of the hardest characters? I mean, of course, we haven't seen Lei win a tournament, but you can say that about many characters. And would you say Gigas, well, would all times put Gigas on that? I mean, Gigas, I can't think of a character that's worse for tournaments. Lei at least has pretty strong mix-ups, you know, or very strong mix-ups.
Lei's damage output, besides from punishment and poking.
And I think a big problem with Lei is that, yeah, okay, no one does well with him in tournaments, but no one's interested in playing Lei. I mean, the Lei players we see today, how strong are they? Are they really utilizing the character to his full potential? I remember the days of Ranka and Tetsuo, you know, amazing Lei players, but that was back in the day, you know, Tekken 5, Tekken 5 DR, start of Tekken 6, but then they dropped out. But if you want to see like Lei senseis, you know, Shifus, masters, check out Ranka and Tetsuo. They will show you things with Lei where you're just like, oh, that is Lei Wulong, you know, how he's supposed to be played. It's a problem today with Lei that he's so underused, no one has any interest in him, that the few players you see with him, they play him at 60%, but they get a lot out of it because so many people don't know the matchup. Could that be a reality? Maybe it's not, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Is really high. And Lei is probably the character with the biggest mix-up potential out of all characters in Tekken 7. If you apply his mix-ups the right way. And he also has decent spacing tools. He has a 12 frames mid for keep out, he has back 3+4, and he has his cartwheel up back 4. He also has decent grabs out of his stances, he has his drunken throw, and he has a throw out of dragon, which are pretty hard to break, and counter hits. Counter hits can really hurt. Forward 4-2 is a high crushing safe counter hit launcher for huge damage. And his up forward 3 crushes low very early and is also safe from highs and mids if you cancel the stance. Back 2-4 even goes under mid sometimes, and this move is quite easy to hit confirm and counter it. And then there's Wolf Rush. So if Wolf Rush is a counter hit with your back against the wall, say goodbye to your life bar.
Some great information.
Why is Lei so fucking hard to use? His punishment sucks. He got so bad punishment for moves that are -10 up.
This is a general theme in Tekken, like, you can't have your cake and eat it at the same time. You can't have super good pressure and then expect to have good punishment. You know, it's like Hwoarang, you know, his punishment isn't that good, but it wouldn't really make sense, you know, to have amazing pressure and amazing punishment, you know, unless your name is Kazumi.
To -13.
But Kazumi doesn't have a mix-up bag, Lei has, and Hwoarang. They have a lot of mix-ups.
And that means that your opponents take low risk for throwing out random hop kicks, which is super helpful in the matchup. With punishment requires a lot of precision, and Lei has a trash power crush. The input is forward 2, it is slow, -12 in block and not much rewarding at all. None of his low pokes is giving him momentum, so if you don't want to risk getting launched, his damage output for his low
Exactly. No momentum building low poke, you know, like he's talking about Kazumi's down back 4, you know, that's +4 on hit and allows for pressure, you know, and just keep going. Lei can't have what traditional fundamentally strong moves like strong punishment and strong poking because of his huge mix-up bag. It just would not work. It's like Yoshimitsu has the same problem. Like if these guys, Lei and Yoshi, had strong momentum building lows and strong pressure, why would anyone want to play Kazuya? You would go with fundamental Lei with the huge mix-up bag. So it's just different character types and different strengths versus weaknesses.
pokes.
It's just at the highest level of play, it's probably better
reward.
to have fundamentally strong assets.
Yeah, Lei is risky. You can do a lot of wrong decisions here.
He's super risky.
And as mentioned before,
He's super risky, but this is hypothetically speaking if your opponent can read you perfectly. Because you're all about the mix-ups. So of course it's risky, but it's about deceiving and tricking your opponent. That's it. And you have to be creative, of course, if you're going up against a strong player.
He might have a strong mix-up potential, but his launching lows come out of stances which can be interrupted. So
they can be interrupted, but you still have unseeable low launchers. Multiple of them. It's like, you have some pretty good shit there.
How strong his 50-50 is depends on character knowledge of the opponent. And
I mean, can you imagine the opposite, where your unseeable low launchers did not come out of a stance? You could just throw them out. It's like, sure, Devil Jin has that, but yeah, I mean, pretty much a perfect character, but he doesn't have a mix-up potential of Lei. And Lei gets a full combo on those lows. Devil Jin gets a neutered 39 damage combo. So, I mean, Devil Jin's Hell Sweep is bullshit either way. I wish it wasn't fair, to be honest. It didn't launch. But there's a reason why Lei's unseeable low launchers are locked behind stances. Anything other than that would be completely ridiculous.
His comeback potential, oh my god, his rage drives hurts him so much. As all of his rage drives come out of his enemy stances.
Really nice Kazuya, by the way. I've
they
been following
so useless
his...
most of the time. You can't just throw out stupid good moves when
following
you rage,
during
like
the matches and
other
just remarking in my head.
And
like,
comeback potential is a big part of Tekken 7. And another point that hurts Lei very much is his range. He got 0 range. Lei is definitely a range 0 to range 1 character. And his grounded hitting options are way under average. If the enemy just stays on the ground, Lei has very bad tools for hitting someone grounded. Well, on the other hand, you can create good wake-up situations with Lei by using his stances, like Panther or Snake, after hitting down 4. It's super hard to approach turtles with Lei. You need to master dash block, and you gotta make use out of his stances in neutral game, which can be risky for Lei.
It's hard to approach turtles, but you were doing very well versus Legendary Mihawk, who's a very turtle defensive player. You were in his face with the Razor Rush, and now you might say, well, I mean, approaching from afar, but I'm not really buying this point, to be honest.
And his rage art is also inconsistent, with his back against the wall, for example. And last but not least, his wall game is awkward, as it is hard to apply the pressure needed to keep someone at the wall. So he has slow...
Again, is it really?
...wall splitting mids, and you gotta commit to lows sometimes. What you see...
Yeah, it's just all I see in my head is getting bullied by Razor Rush at the wall, but... Ah, you know more about Lei than I do, for sure.
Here is a matchup tier list for Lei Volong. The guys on S tier are his hardest matchups. And yeah, I did like over 6,000 games already with Lei in Tekken 7. And it's just my opinion, you can think of it whatever you want. But this tier list describes how I think about Lei in Tekken 7. He has a lot of good matchups and a lot of bad matchups. And a lot of matchups that are about even, so he's probably somewhere at mid tier.
Okay, that's the video, a very well made video, and it teaches you a lot about Lei. Let's see. I'm just gonna stress my opinion here again. Character difficulty, and you know what these are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is behind me. Let's put in Noctis. There is literally no difficulty whatsoever, and then at the highest level there's a lot of difficulty because his tools are so lacking. So if we go by what you like to say, Noctis is a very difficult character because he is super hard to play at professional level, But again, I just want to say that to me, all of this matters. No matter what you say, I will believe that all of this matters, because I like to say, I like to be able to detail all of this to students of mine who come and say, I get blown up by Noctis at yellow ranks. And then I say, yes, it's because Noctis can actually be a bit unfair at those ranks. He's very easy to use, super absurdly hard to counter. The aura, he's 50-50, he gets a lot of stuff for free. You're going to have to work your ass off playing against him. But you know what? He's super easy now, but once you make it to high level, it's going to be much easier countering him, and he's going to have a much harder time. You know? But all of this is relevant. You know, I can't have that yellow rank student playing Brian or whatever character and getting blown up by Noctis, you know, and someone like you says, well, Noctis is very hard, he's weak, he's not good. And it's like, that's not really true, you know, where he is at that particular moment, because the arc is of importance. So that's all I'm saying, you know, and I'm the only one putting this forth. Do not feel threatened by this. I actually went to the Lei Discord yesterday, and I thanked all times for making the video, and I immediately got jumped by some people in the Lei Discord, and they felt like, oh, I'm so wrong, you should only look at the top level. And I'm like, I just fundamentally disagree. I think actually the characters operate very differently during their road, you know, this adventure up the different player skills. And some moves are actually tailor-made to counter certain player skill levels, and then certain tools become more apparent the higher up you get. And all of this matters, and Bandai Namco agree with me, because as I've said before, Eddie Gordo and Christy Montero were in Tag 2 were not considered broken here. They were not. They didn't win tournaments. But at any other level of play, they were broken. And Bandai Namco removed back 1-4 because it made the game unplayable at these levels. But back 1-4 didn't hurt this level. Pro players didn't have any issue with that. But they still removed the back 1-4 because the game has to be balanced at those levels as well. So all I'm saying is, in my opinion, all of this matters. The arc matters. So I hope I made my opinion clear, and why I feel Lei just cannot be overall considered one of the hardest characters in the game. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I wish you a lovely day. Bye.